welcome to another episode of Chatty Broads with Bekah and Jess.
Lord, I lift you. No, you just started rolling with it.
I'm like, are we really going to go out with Lord, I lift your name on high?
No.
Because I'm okay doing that if you want to.
Did we already sing a date night? Did we sing, as we go on, we remember?
Yeah, we talked about how we always go back to that one a little bit.
Is that the one we always go back to? I don't think it is.
All the graduation songs
Yeah, all
really
the graduation
get mixed up.
songs. You guys, I don't even know how to start this episode.
I know.
What the heck?
I know. I'm trying to process right now. It's like, I know that it's the final, but I also am like...
I do not think it is. I don't think it's real for me.
It'll probably hit in a couple weeks.
Just like the other day, I was going to
You'll probably show up next week.
You'll be at
on Wednesday at 11 and knock on the door and I'll be like, oh my God, B, hello. And you'll be like, oh, I forgot.
So want to clean your closet instead?
Yes, please. We're not gonna podcast together anymore. Becca's gonna come over and help me clean my closet.
No, it's crazy. The other day I was literally gonna voice memo you and be like, hey, in the future, it was like a small thing, but I was gonna be like, hey, in the future, can you, and then I was like, it was actually kind of weird. I was like, oh, like there's actually no sense in saying that.
That's crazy.
We are not going to be doing.
I mean,
any
you're
episodes.
still welcome to do that.
I can't even say. But it had to do with
so
the podcast.
you just make up shit. Be like, so just FYI, in the future, would you mind letting me know if you're going to do this? It's all good. And I'm just like, what is she talking about? But we just keep the flow going.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like something about like, oh, when you send like, oh, you know, can we ask our agency if we can get the podcast ads like quicker or whatever? And then I was like, I won't even be like sitting in my kitchen recording podcast ads on my voice memos anymore. I mean, as I'm even saying it, I think I'm processing it and I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't even know. I was going through for this episode, like all of our old episodes, and I was having this like existential crisis over the idea that like everything has gone by so quickly and yet it feels like forever at the same time. Like I can't remember like the idea of not recording every week. I can't even like get in my brain.
No.
But then at the same time, when I was looking through all of our old episodes, I was like, this went by so I think about some of our, the episodes, even not even quite in the double or in the triple digits yet. And I'm like, that seems like maybe a year and a half ago, but like 4 years ago.
Completely. Like maybe, yeah, exactly. Like our 40th episode or something. Like I can remember some of those clear as day. Also, I feel like I probably remember every episode really well. I can't I can't even comprehend that we've done over 4. What number is this? Do you know what number this is off the top of your head?
This is going to be, let's see. I mean,
of course, there's also the bros. So I know that then that technically doesn't count for us recording.
That's
so there
true.
is that,
That's
if we're going to be
it's hard to really get the technical number because this is going to be, this one will be the 408. This one will be 480 when it comes out. Like you said, there are some bros ones, but maybe it would be like 450.
What, of us?
Yeah.
They haven't only recorded 25 episodes. They've been recording for over a year now.
Oh my God.
I know. So we've maybe recorded like 400 at least. Yeah. I know they've been recording for over a year.
Yeah.
How wild is that? So, I mean, I just can't comprehend that we've created that much together.
I know.
How do you wrap up a legacy? The legacy of a lifetime.
How do you wrap up a legend?
Well, it is wild too. I was seeing this morning on Instagram, everyone posting about their Spotify, like most listen to podcasts, and they were tagging us. And I was like, and then it was showing the hours that people listen to, like 75,000 hours, or 7,500. 7,500 hours.
210,000 hours.
Hours in a year. Yeah. Thousands of hours, though, spent listening. And I'm like, wow.
I'm so grateful. I can't even believe it.
It couldn't even be 7,500 hours. So that's actually like way more hours than you think it is. that means they'd have to be listening to like 17 hours of us a day.
I mean, that sounds great to me.
They just constantly have us in the
And
background.
we thank you for it.
Wow.
Yeah, Becca and I were talking. We were like, how do we wrap up something that's meant so much to us, that's been just part of every day, every weekly like life for the past 4 years. We've experienced so much life together. And at first we were like, should we do something like out of the ordinary and unique for the final episode? And then we were both kind of like, let's end this thing the way we started
And
it.
what could we possibly do, you know?
It's got to be me and you on the couch.
Just chatting.
Just chatting. Yeah.
Okay, first a word from our sponsors before we get into it, because this is a money-making business, you guys. Thank you, sponsors.
I wanted to say too, thank you. Honestly though, thank you so much to everyone who sponsored us and took chances on us and supported us
And
throughout
everyone
the
who
past 4 years.
bought
And
stuff
that's the
from
thing.
our ads.
I've said this before, but we have had ad agencies come to us and been like, your listeners
Buy
are
shit.
so supportive of you guys. And like, even if they're not buying it, like listening through the ad, looking up the code, that means so much. Like
Yeah, it
truly.
actually does.
So thank you. And yes, a word from our sponsors, because it wouldn't be Chatty Broads if we didn't have some sponsored
It really
spot.
wouldn't.
Okay. Broads. Today's episode is sponsored by the app that is going to keep all of us a little healthier this year, and that's ZocDoc. ZocDoc is the free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, takes your insurance, and are available when you need them. I'm obsessed with ZocDoc. I've been using them for years.
So convenient. I can't even tell you how many times I put off going to the doctor for myself because I couldn't get an appointment for months, couldn't find a specialist in my area, couldn't find someone that took my insurance, yada, yada, yada. It's such a pain in the butt. Also, a lot of times you can't even book online for doctors. You have to like call and like, forget it, I'm not calling. What a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But ZocDoc lets you filter all the things so you can instantly see your options and book an appointment the same day. The same day.
And plus, you'll be able to see real verified patient reviews for each doctor so you can make your decision based on actual experiences.
Say less. Say less.
Yes.
Go to ZocDoc.com/chatty. Download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/chatty. ZocDoc.com/chatty.
These are our last ad reads.
I know. Wow. Lucky these sponsors.
I know, you guys got us on our final hurrah. Our emotional hurrah while we weep through the sponsors,
I
while
know.
we weep through the ad reads. That's where you got us.
But you know what? I was telling Evan today, I was like, just on a personal life note for both of us, I was like, what a good time to take a break. I mean, are you feeling it? Because I'm feeling it. As bittersweet as it is, I'm like, wow, I'm ready for a little break.
Yeah, I am in a space right now where I am literally feeling, when I tell you every emotion, I mean every emotion. Like every minute of the day for the past like week, I think the holidays probably prompt that too, where like all of a sudden I'm getting a little more sentimental and like processing a little more. But I'm like, I have 1 second where I'm like an emotional wreck, thinking about just reminiscing on like how special this has been. And then all of a sudden I am filled with wild pride about the fact that we did it and how we wrapped it the way that we did and are loving on each other. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, I'm scared for the future. And then I'm like, I'm so excited for us and what our futures are going to look like. And then I'm a little relieved to know, like so excited to know that we're going to have just a little respite to really soak up the holidays with our family.
It's entering just a new, like, slower era for at least a bit of time.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm excited to just know, because we're going to be dropping our first official ep January 4th, first week in January on a Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday.
On a Wednesday.
Okay.
We're going to do Wednesdays. But just to know that, like, I don't know, I just feel so much warmth in my stomach. I don't know how else to say it. It's like in my gut, to know how we're ending this with our community together with such like happiness and peace, and knowing that we're then going to go, you know, I don't know what's to come for you, but like that we're going to go into like a bit of rest, all of us, at least for the next couple weeks during the holidays, and really just get to soak up I don't know. I think it'd be a great time too to really soak up how much this has meant to me.
Yeah.
And be like, oh my God, we did it.
I think it'll take me a lot longer, to be totally honest. Like, I
You'll
haven't
call
even
me a year later and be like,
yeah,
oh,
no,
Jess!
for real. Then I probably won't even start listening to old episodes for like 3 years. And then I'll be like, wow. I don't know. I think I really haven't been thinking about it a lot. Sometimes I have a hard time. I think I've talked about this before, but sometimes I have a hard time like even accessing like, we've been going through some stuff in our family, you know, and it's like, wow, you're going through that. And I'm like, it's not like I'm actively trying to not feel it, but sometimes it's hard for me to get a grip on like what the implications are for my life, right? So I'm like, I know Chatty Broads is ending, but right now Chatty Broads hasn't ended. Right now I'm sitting here recording with you.
Exactly.
So it's kind of
the
hard,
reality.
right? So it's kind of hard for me to like, it's just because I'm so in the moment, you know. It's just I'm just so present, you know, in the now.
Lives so in the moment.
I'm just so in the now.
Versus me, I'm like someone's having to like drag me out of bed and be like, you know, you actually got to like, you can't just keep thinking about the stuff. You got to like, you gotta get over it. You gotta, you know, process.
I don't think it's because I'm so in the now. I don't think it's that, but I think I just have a hard time feeling it until it really feels like a reality. Like I've been grieving so much recently for like the loss of some of my family members, and it's been 10 years, but I think it's finally really sinking in where I'm like, wow, I really want to call them and tell them about this and share this. And I'm like, wow, like I can't. And that is when it's really like hits for me. And I think that it might be the same thing with Chatty Broads, you know, a couple months from now where I'm like, you know what, we really need to do a podcast about that. You know, like, oh, we really got to like, we're going to have to do a couple episodes. And I mean, granted, I could make content, but it's not the same, you know, it's like, I know I'll be like, oh, I want to sit with Jess and we are going to hash this out probably next season of The Bachelor when I have, so, you know, I'm like, we got to do a series on this topic. And then it's like, oh, like that chapter is closed for now. And I think that's going to be when it really sinks in for me. And I'm going to be like,
oh yeah, no, I know. I think it's hitting me 1,000%, but like, I think I'll have those moments of it really hitting me when all of a sudden something like funny happens and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to wait to tell Bekah on the podcast and then be like, oh no, I just got to call Bekah, which I will happily do.
No, but
it's just a different, it's just, you know, we've had a relationship in a certain degree that like a friendship that's gotten so close, but so much of it has been behind microphones. So now it's literally just like that transitionary period of like, oh no, I'm going to leave you the voice memo about it or call you. I won't save the content for the pod.
I know. I think that's kind of sad.
Maybe I'll help.
It's not sad.
I know, but maybe it's not. It's just different. It's just different. But maybe I'll help myself process it by just like going on Insta stories and tagging you. Just telling a personal, funny story and just tag back and be like, I feel like in public makes this feel more typical for me. So I'm just going to do this here, okay?
Yeah, what is an experience if not seen by thousands of people, right? No, I think that will be a strange thing. And I think I take for granted how, you know, I guess probably most listeners don't know, we usually talk for at least an hour when we're not recording every Wednesday. Even when we're in a rush, we end up sitting and chatting about something for 30 minutes after we finish.
I think the top of the podcast, we talked for at least 45 minutes.
Today we talked for an hour and a half.
We talked for an hour and a half before we started recording. And then typically once we stop, we'll talk for at least another 45.
Yeah, definitely. And then Evans, and then we're standing around the kitchen, you know, ranting about something.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of times when we're recording 2 podcasts a day. So that's like 7 hours of talking together once a week.
I know. I'm always like, whenever I tell people, I'm like, you know, doing the podcast is an all day thing. We record, you know, 2 hour-and-a-half episodes. And I'm like, and then I drive an hour each way. But
and you're like, why does
that's
it
only
take
4.5 hours. That's only about 5.5 hours. That's definitely not 8 hours. So the math ain't mathin'. And
like,
oh wait, it's because we're just really chattering.
It's because we're showing each other different memes and talking about parenting and yelling about something for however many hours.
Exactly. Yeah. And I will miss that like built in just like every week. You know, it's also nice. Like sometimes I think we can both just get in, you get in the cave, you get in your cozy place, especially during winter for me. I'm just like, what are you going to do? I'm not going to go to the beach.
Oh, no, you hibernate.
I mean, granted, probably is beach weather like once every other week, but still, it just is like a different feeling. And it's been so nice to be pulled out. I mean, like we've talked about, after having both kids, it was like the consistency of getting to spend time with a friend is something that I'm really so grateful for.
Oh, 1,000%.
Because it's just built into my schedule.
I legitimately was having to kind of take stock in my brain and go, okay, Jess, now that this is wrapping,
Gotta be intentional.
You're going to have to be really intentional about time spent with friends because I know I can kind of get in my like cave too and I can hibernate. And this has been just always such an awesome way of it being a weekly experience. And now I'm like, okay, this is now an opportunity for me to work on extending myself, being intentional about setting up dates, not canceling certain hangs and all that, and making sure I make time for that because it is so special.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, it was built in.
Yeah.
It was built in.
I mean,
I'm like, who am I going to talk to now?
I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say we have never. I also think you and I are so comfortable in front of the camera and mic. And like I said, we chat outside of recording throughout the whole day. So it's like we have done it, but we have, I don't think never gone to each other's houses to hang out when we haven't recorded. Ever. Can you think of a time?
No. Other than a birthday.
Yeah, other than a birthday. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Birthday.
But no.
But also, like we've talked about, I talk to you 8 hours every single week.
Yeah, and then we voice text like all day, all week.
And we've gone out to like dinner, like comedy clubs, but we've never gone over to each other's house just to like hang out.
So
but I do hang out, like I said, I hang out at your house every week. But it's still weird to say that out loud of like, we've never gone to each other's house for like an evening.
That is so bizarre.
Right?
I'm like, you've been in my house for an evening. I'm like, oh, that was a Zoom.
Yeah. Or coming over to record a late night episode and we'll watch The Bachelor. You know, we would come and watch The Bachelor at your house. And
I think what I think about though too, honestly, is like I said too, when I'm taking stock, I'm like, oh my gosh, like for, you know, the past, you know, set of years, I'm like, I haven't really done that with a lot of people at all in general.
True.
I think I've been a little bit like in this kind of cave mode, which I think is okay in a season for sure. But I'm like, I'll go out and meet people all the time places, but like having that home and being like, come into my home and like, let's sit and whatever, doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
I'm like excited to be intentional about that.
Yeah. I think that's like a really nice thing to get to. I don't know. It's different. So
I'm
yeah.
such a hermit crab.
Are you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like, it's one or, you know, it's one of two extremes for me. I'm either going out and it's going to be late and it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
Or I am literally hermit crab with my family in my house.
You used to host people though at your house, and that's what I like to do. I like to just say, because you get to use the excuse too. You get to the excuse of like, well, you know, our kids go to bed at 7, so if you could just come over at 8, you know, and like that's a great excuse. I do that all the time.
Honestly, before the podcast, I used to
I
host
remember.
people all
during the beginning
time.
of the pod, well, probably up till COVID, maybe now before COVID, I guess.
Yeah.
But I remember like the first year or so of us recording, like that is, you guys would do that often, you know, have a little fire. You also had a friend living at your house. So that was also a different dynamic.
Yes. He was crashing.
But, you know, a lot has changed since then. So.
Yeah, no. But I'm excited to like, I don't know, get into a season like of like recalibrating and being intentional about that and maybe having more bonfires again. And
I've got to watch myself because I'm already like, okay, Wednesdays, should I start like a college class? Should I start?
You're gonna.
I'm like, I was literally like,
you're gonna be like, what's the next 15 projects? And I'm gonna be like, it's time to hang out, baby. Everybody come over. I'm going out too.
I always have like, even I gotta like work on this because I'll be having a conversation with someone and I'm also having like a conversation in my brain at like the same time as I'm like talking to someone. So as we've been talking about all this, you know, we did like a weekend workshop at a ranch in Altadena nearby.
Yes,
I was actually supposed to go to my friend's today and help her tan rabbit hides. I was supposed to go do that after our recording, but she canceled because her kids got sick. But then I'm like, oh, maybe I should start coming to the ranch on Wednesdays, and I could like oh, maybe I could get some sheep, and then I could tend to them on the ranch every Wednesday. And I'm like, that literally, that's what my brain was doing in the schedule. In the last 10 minutes, I'm like, stop. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
But I am excited for what the
Are you gonna rest a little bit?
Maybe. I mean, when you were saying the last few weeks, I've been reflecting. I was like, I've been doing so many crafts. I haven't even thought about the podcast.
You're just weaving baskets 24/7. I'm like, man, it's really been hitting me. And you're just like, weave and crochet and sew and paint and build.
You should see my house right now. I'm just adding to Christmas decorations literally every night. I'm like, paper chains, more dried oranges. We need more dried oranges. More popcorn strings. I'm just kind of losing it.
Sure, you can't even see the branches anymore because you have so much.
I literally
Gray's
thought the other
is this a coping mechanism? And you're just like, more.
Literally the other day, I was like, I think we should go. I literally had that thought. I was like, I think we should go maximalist with the tree. I think we should make it so you can't even see the tiny needles. There are so many ornaments and decorations on it. I had that thought. I was like, that would look great. So but actually though, on a real level,
oh my god,
it has been so good for me to be. I've really unlocked my brain this year. I was telling my parents that, and they were laughing, but I was like, I've unlocked my brain. I done it, baby. And I think we did talk about this in the podcast before, but I have to bring it up again. I've learned how to finish things. And how beautiful with the podcast. I was just saying it to my mother-in-law on the phone with her on the way here. How beautiful that I know I already said it, but I just want to say it again. So proud to have seen Chatty Broads to the finish. And it's complete. I shouldn't say finish, completion. To wholeness. Brought it around, and it's a whole pie of 4 years of doing something. And I get to look at it and go, look what we made. And it's complete.
1,000%. It's amazing. I also think there's so much power, because I know you always talk about I have a hard time finishing something.
Yeah.
I think a big part of that too is knowing when to finish. You know what I mean? I think it's sometimes when you're, painting a beautiful picture in your home and you're a little bit should I add more? Should I add more? And it's sometimes you're oh no, it's done. And having that awareness of knowing when to finish, even when there's maybe we could elongate it a little bit, or
I always just struggled to.
I think it's powerful.
I always just struggled to pick up the brush the next day. That was always my thing. It's just starting in everything from a painting to the podcast. It's to return to it, because I think I was really. I think I'm actually struggling with that with a project in my life right now. I'm actually struggling with it. Well, I don't have to go into it right now, but I'm just I don't want to keep working on it because I'm scared that it won't be good enough. So I think I was always scared to just pick up the brush again, to keep working on it the next day, because it was better for it to just be in progress and never quite finished than it to be finished in something that I felt wasn't good enough.
Did you ever feel that way about the podcast, where it was I'm struggling to keep going because I'm scared it won't be good enough?
Probably subconsciously. Yeah. And then I think that it's probably just a subconscious thing that's a little bit debilitating. And it's just I don't know. So many fears that come into play, right? What was one of your fears with the podcast that you struggled with?
There were definitely a few. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to handle everything, learning new skills and being able to handle multitasking and balancing a bunch of things. I have a really hard time doing that. So I was the thing that I learned about starting the podcast was that it's okay, we sit here we talk for however many hours a week, and that's great. But then like there's so many things that are going on behind the scenes, and there's so much work behind the scenes that I was like, after we started, I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to balance all of this.
Do you think you have a harder time starting, continuing, or finishing?
I think I have a harder time continuing.
Yeah.
I think we're similar a little bit in that way. Well, no, you're talking about finishing, but I think
they go hand in hand.
Finishing thing,
right? Because you have to continue to finish. So
that's true. That's very true. I think something that was really special to me about the art of podcasting is that there would be certain weeks where I would be like, oh man, that episode didn't go the way I was hoping with the guest, or oh, we fucked up on that way, and there was this fear of continuing, like maybe we should just stop because this didn't go well.
Yeah.
But the thing about the podcast that's so cool is like you get to put out something new every couple days. And you get to start from the beginning almost every week.
True.
And there was something really beautiful to me about that. It's not like necessarily an art form where someone, works on writing a song for months and then puts it out and that's the one single. There's something about podcasting that's so cool because it's continual.
Well, and even if you put out only 5 episodes, you still have 5 completed episodes. Like each one is its own completed project, right? Even if it's only 2 hours.
And if you don't like episode 5, you can put out a 6th episode if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've never really thought about it like that, but it's true. And I think it always was. I mean, I've always liked looking at the numbers continue to grow and be like, 40 episodes. Wow. 100 episodes. Wow. Like, look at this thing. Like it has like a tangible like meatiness to it. Like this is a set that like of things of conversations that are published, that are out there. Like I think that was really fun to see and really it was really kind of special to watch unfold. And not knowing I don't know if I definitely don't think when we did the first episode, there's no way in hell I would have thought we would have gone to almost 500 episodes.
Oh, absolutely not. I was like, this is super. I didn't even have the concept of like, how you're talking about, it's not going to hit me that it's ending. I think for me, what never hit was after it started.
Yeah.
For years, I was like, oh shit, we have next week. This is a thing. Like, I can't believe that
that's so true.
We started and there was this like, of course there's the desire and you hope it works out and you hope it's a great product and you hope people like it and connect with it and all of that. But it was almost kind of like, yeah, we'll do it.
I think that was one of the beautiful things is I think we came into it with like, kind of left ego out of it in the sense of like, it is different when you are planning are you feeling that difference with you and Evan of like you're planning something, there's anticipation, you're hoping it goes well? We didn't even have any of that. We didn't even hope it. I mean, it was like, if people listen, cool.
There's definitely like with mine and Evan's, there's more nerves because now you've produced something already. Yeah. So you're like, well, gotta top it and gotta be successful or else it's gonna look like a failure. And that's actually been a really like healthy process for me right now because there's that desire for that to creep in where you get the nerves and go, well, if it doesn't go well and it's, I don't keep just improving, well, then it's a failure. Right. And I've been trying to resonate back a lot to how we started. And Ember looked at me the other day and she came upon a problem when she was making one of her little art things and she got frustrated and all of a sudden she paused and she's like, Mommy, sometimes she just looks at me and I'm just like, I don't know where this wisdom comes from. She goes, Mommy, mistakes are good. Yeah. Because now I can make something different.
Yeah.
And she had this whole plan and it didn't look like the purse she was intending to make. And she's like, well, now I can make a little frame out of it and I can make something new. And then she started this whole conversation about how life is just an adventure. Yeah. It's just an adventure.
Yeah, it is.
And I've been trying to then reframe that and then getting really excited where I'm like, you know what? The truth of the matter is this. You and I started this podcast and we didn't think it was going to necessarily be anything. It became everything. It became every week for 4 years, an amazing community, meeting incredible people, our livelihood financially, everything. And there's a chance that Evan and I start this podcast and it fails miserably.
Sure.
There's a chance.
Yeah, right. There's always a chance.
But that is, maybe people don't connect with it, or it's like, okay, Chatty Broads is, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a chance. And if that happens, on to the next beautiful adventure.
Something different.
Let's take that purse and turn it into a frame. And we learn something from that and we move forward.
I think that was beautiful about this podcast. It was like one of the few projects I've ever gone into where I felt disconnected from the outcome. I think both of us did. It was like, we weren't shooting for anything in particular. We didn't have a goal. It was kind of like, well, let's just keep going. Yeah, let's just keep going. Mm-hmm. And then to be like, oh, well, but if we had, only continued to get like 500 listeners, an episode, it might have petered out eventually. And we would just, but that probably wouldn't have even been felt like a huge disappointment or failure because we didn't really have any emotion. It was like,
not at all. I remember literally uploading our first episode and watching the numbers of people coming in. I remember the first episode, like there was a handful, it wasn't tons.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh my God, there is a face behind every single one of those numbers.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry. It's just it's just crazy because I think like, you're like, oh my God, there's a person. There's a literal human being listening, and maybe it's on while their little baby is playing in the background, or they're on their way to work, and you're like, whoa, dude, what a gift. And even if that number isn't big, like what a gift.
No, it's true. There are podcasts that I can't even comprehend that because I listen to some podcasts religiously.
Same.
And to think that someone listens to our podcast the way I listen to those podcasts. And, a new episode. Ooh, okay, I'm going to save that for my drive. And I'm going to it's an hour and a half. Great. That means I get to listen to it both. The thing that someone does that with our show, has done that, some people for years, is really pretty difficult for me to wrap my head around.
I know. It's like such an honor.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only way to put it.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Well, should we do an ad read? Should we get into some fun
sponsors
stuff
first? What of
let's do that.
Yes, as we do each ad read, it's going to become more and more real for me. So I will start crying as each ad read continues. And then after the ad read, we've got some superlatives.
Yeah, let's do some fun stuff.
Some fun stuff. Some Chatty Broad superlatives, baby. Broads, we all have like a million things to do this time of year. Spending even 5 extra minutes fussing around in the kitchen is not exactly the best use of anyone's time, but we gotta eat, right? But that doesn't mean you can't make it a little easier on yourself with a little assistance from HelloFresh, the meal kit delivery service that makes eating well so easy.
There's a ton of reasons why using HelloFresh makes sense. For me, it's all about getting something healthy on the table when time is not on our side and I don't want, oh my gosh, the rigmarole of planning and
it's a lot.
Shopping
it's a lot.
Oh my God. But HelloFresh offers up to 35 different recipes each week. You can choose from them. And once you find out what you like, they're going to send you pre-portioned, partially prepared ingredients. Really easy to follow recipe cards. You can whip up the meals in your own kitchen and have the pride. You're like, this is something that I made. And they even have options that are ready in as little as 20 minutes. And that's less time than it would take to have a pizza delivered.
And no shame on that takeout pizza. Yum. But the meals from HelloFresh are even a whole lot better tasting, okay? Some of the options. Let's talk about the menu this week. Okay. Crispy buffalo spiced chicken. Okay. Figgy balsamic pork.
Okay.
Dijon onion crunch salmon.
Ooh.
I need this immediately. These are restaurant quality dishes, everybody. Also, you're going to be saving money because you don't need to go out and buy special ingredients or spices just for the one dish. Everything you need is included. And that's that. Just prepare and enjoy.
Go to HelloFresh.com/Chatty70. Use code Chatty70. You'll get 70% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/Chatty70. Use code Chatty70 for 70% off plus free shipping today.
So between all these upcoming holidays, there's always an occasion for the wine, whether it's toasting with friends and family or a bottle for the table at a holiday dinner or a gift for the host of the party.
Yeah.
I always like to keep a few bottles, by the way, on hand during this time so I'm not left running to the store at the last second grabbing whatever has the best looking label, because trust me, those usually don't taste the best. Don't leave your wine choices up to fate this holiday season. Leave them up to the experts at First Leaf Wine Club.
First Leaf Wine Club is the easiest way to guarantee you always have amazing bottles on hand. That's because instead of sending you whatever the wine of the month is that they choose, First Leaf takes time to get to know your palate and taste and personalizes your shipments to you specifically. Gray and I used to be members of Wine Club, and every once in a while you get like a whole bottle or two where you're like, oh, I don't really want to drink this.
Not with First Leaf.
Why would I want to be paying for that? Instead, with First Leaf, as you get bottles, you're going to continue to rate them with a simple thumbs up or thumbs down, which means that the more shipments you get, the more personalized they get. It's pretty cool. There are bottles that we would have never thought to even grab at the store because First Leaf picks them based on a flavor profile. So we always end up loving them.
And here's the thing. With First Leaf, that's amazing. If for some reason you get a bottle that you don't love, it's no problem. First Leaf will just credit your account for a brand new bottle, okay? Head into the holiday season prepared for every toast, party, or dinner with First Leaf.
Sign up today. You'll get your first 6 bottles for $39.95 plus free shipping. Go to tryfirstleaf.com/chatty. That's tryfirstleaf.com/chatty. You'll get your first 6 bottles for $39.95 plus free shipping. These are all really high quality wines too. Go to tryfirstleaf.com/chatty. Yeah, instead of just talking around in circles like we always do about the same things.
I know it's
meaningful
we were talking in circles.
to us also, but let's actually, I feel like we've been talking about the same things for the last 2 months, but that's because they're important to us and
That's
it's what's
true.
going on in our lives. But still, let's do something fun.
Chatty Broads superlatives. So we put together a list of
Jess
a
put
bunch
together a
of
list.
different moments and things. And I'll be real with you, a few of these I couldn't just choose one. So
Okay.
just as a heads up.
Do you have
sorry.
one that you want to start with?
Should we do?
I'll pick one. I have
Okay.
one that stands out to me. Dream guest we've never got. I still can't believe we never did one with Pilot Pete.
That is a big one.
I feel like we could have made it happen. I was going back and forth with their booking person.
We were close.
His flight schedule is all over the place.
He's a busy man.
Maybe we can still hit the town in New York with him one day.
I would love, Pilot Pete, if you're listening, Bekah and I will come out to your location and we'll meet up with you and party. And maybe if we can document like a tiny bit of it, that would be great.
Sure.
If not, we'll keep
For
it
the
undercover.
YouTube.
We won't talk about it if you
True.
don't want us to. Sure.
We'll just hint. We'll say like a certain Bachelor star might have mentioned. But
That's a great one.
solid.
Yes. Yeah. The dream guest we never got for me.
Yes.
Oh my God. This one hurts a little bit. Pete Holmes.
Oh yeah.
Pete Holmes was like my, like
And you tried.
he's my white whale
Yeah.
because his podcast is really what helped me in like so many trying times for like transition for
Yeah.
me, introduced me to so many people like Rob Bell, Pete Rollins, like all those
Yeah.
people I discovered years and years ago through Pete Holmes's podcast. And I did my damnedest, but couldn't get a hold of
Why
him.
don't you have Abby connect you? You could go be a guest on his podcast.
I don't know if he'd have me be a guest. I think
Why?
he deals with some big time celebs.
I mean, Abby's not a big time celeb.
but Abby's a comedian he respects.
Oh.
And he's interested in his upbringing, I think.
Oh.
But I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to give up on you, Pete. If
Guys,
you're listening.
tag him. Tag Pete Holmes.
Oh my
Blow
God.
him up, Rods. Blow up Pete Holmes.
Because I have tried to get a
Send
hold
him
of him.
this
And
clip.
listen, he is a busy man. And I think he actually stays off the Instagram and has someone else do it. So I understand
blow
how
up his email. Find his personal address and show up.
Pete. We have friends in common. Rob Bell, Pete Rollins.
Abby
Please.
Robert. Abby invited us to his birthday last night. Neither of us could go, but still, he's a good friend.
But he was my guy. Because I always thought that specifically me, you, and Pete would have such a
so.
silly, fun, deep emotional. I was like, the three of us are going to go on a roller coaster of emotions because we're all silly. We like to have a good time. We like to throw it around, but we're also like, oh, so serious.
Maybe we can still go on his podcast together.
Oh my God, that would be really special.
Let's tell Abby. Pitch us, please. Yes, we're ending the podcast, but who the fuck cares? It would be really fun. Also, I've listened to a couple of his podcasts, and it's understandable why you tolerate me, because he interrupts like all of the guests. And it actually made it hard for me to listen.
I love it. I'm like, this is action. I love action.
It's moving.
I love moving. I love interrupting. I love the whole thing. It's movement. It's flowing. I'm like, if you got an idea, interrupt me and say it, queen.
You're right. Oh, that's why
Please.
we work.
No, I love it.
Okay.
A lot of times I don't even know where I'm going. So when you interrupt me and you go in a different direction, I'm like, that is what I'm talking about. Now I know where we're going.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
That is helpful. I love guests that, I love some guests that interrupt. I've had some guests where I'm like, this is my podcast. You remember, right?
But bless them all.
All right, you pick one.
Okay, well, what about favorite personal episode?
Yeah, what did you mean by that?
Like your favorite episode that meant a lot to you personally.
You start.
So I said, and I talked about this on date night a little bit, but for me, it's in the same lane as if Pete Holmes would have come on the podcast. Rob Bell was huge to me.
Yeah.
It meant so much. I had read so many of his books. I was in such a transitionary period. That was huge to me. In that same vein, God, Church, and the Broads, our first Bible Broads episode.
Was that the first? Mm-hmm. That was us and Val, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That one meant so much to me.
Yeah.
Because that was a big life shift.
Yeah.
A big life shift. And all of a sudden, all these broads are coming out of the woodworks being like, me too. And I'm like, yes, family.
I think one of the most meaningful, personal episodes for me. It's hard because there are really, truly so...
I know there's so many.
I think, honestly, some of my favorites just in terms of conversation were with Pete Rollins, actually. Was like some of my favorites just like in terms of I felt like I could just... Like there's some episodes where you just never want it to end because you just want to like keep going down the rabbit hole into the night. Like I remember feeling that way with both of his episodes where I'm like, I could just keep bouncing off of you for hours and hours and hours and hours.
I think we both walked away after both of his episodes feeling so peaceful and thoughtful. And we had him both times around holidays. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling it was like such a good reset to step into that. Yeah. Broads, seriously, because I think Pete Rollins episodes came out around the holidays.
Also, it's kind of like, oh, is this going to be like heady? I mean, it is like philosophical, like getting into it.
But whenever there's anything that comes out around the holidays, not as many people listen. Understandably, people are busy. If you have not listened to both Pete Rollins episodes, go on our little, your Apple podcast, look up Chatty Broads, Pete Rollins. You will find both of those episodes. Do not sleep on those. Yeah. They are fantastic. Yeah. And his voice just makes me like want to curl up and go to sleep. I'm just like, read me a lullaby, Pete.
I know. And for me, it was just like the mental and like philosophical gymnastics. It was also just like making meaning of life. And I don't know, all that stuff was just so fun. Also, I know we've talked about it before, but I do always come back to some of the episodes with Craig that were just like, remember even like, do you remember even in 2020 where he's like, I'm out at the riots, there's people throwing bombs, like just like even in the most like,
remember we were zooming him and he was like,
I'm out of the field, people, and this is fucking crazy. It was just like, even in like rough times, like Craig always had a way of just like lightening the mood and just like making us crack up.
Well, one of my questions was, I added this last minute. I was going to say the hardest you've ever laughed with a guest.
Oh.
It has to be, Craig is That's the obvious Craig.
Yeah,
right?
because we've laughed pretty hard in some of our episodes, the two of us.
When
but
Craig called me horse girl for 30 minutes.
Dude, our final episode with Craig, that was I laughed quite
you and
hard.
I were like,
crying.
there were tears streaming. Like, I feel like that final episode with Craig
really
for
was
like
one of the
30
most
minutes,
fun.
You might think that Jessica left the room because you never heard
like,
me speak, because my laugh is silent sometimes when I'm like crying laughing. It's because I couldn't stop laughing for like 30 minutes.
That episode was
horse girl. I was like, I can't stop laughing.
That one, I really do have to say, like, that to me was one of the funniest episodes we've recorded with Craig. Like, I did think our final episode with him really did not disappoint.
It was so
I can't wait to go
fun.
back and listen to that one.
One of my, I have to say, I think Craig is like of course he is our king. We worship him. Another guest where I don't think, like, when I have a memory of laughing, like where I could not breathe. When we had Chad and Will on from Dudesy.
That was a good one.
Which, by the way, if you're not watching Dudesy or listening to Dudesy, it's such an incredible podcast.
Yeah.
Chad from Game of Roses, Will Sasso.
That was a good one.
I could not breathe when Will was going in and out of being in, like, you know, he's like in the gel controlled by AI. And then he was kept going into his like Italian, like, you know, talking about like making whatever the soup.
Dude, you're on the floor.
I could not. My stomach hurt so bad after that episode because it was cramping from laughing so hard.
That episode was fantastic because that one was a mix again of like philosophy, but also humor, and like that was a great episode.
I love that episode.
I already forgot about that one. That was a really stellar one. Another one I have to say, one of the most, I'll make up a superlative, most useful episode. One that I always refer to people and that people continually bring up to me in the DMs is our postpartum episode, the real postpartum episode. I can't remember if we recorded that one with Lauren or not. That might have been a separate one.
I think that was a separate one.
Both of those were very helpful, and I refer those to other people quite often. We recorded, that's right, we recorded just one of me and you, I think at the table in your,
I think so,
in your
I think
kitchen
you were at the
for
table.
some reason, don't know why. But that one was, I constantly refer to people, and a lot of people say, even to this day in my DMs, like, I going through postpartum, whatever, like your episode like really helped me, like, and really prepared me for what was to come.
For most helpful episode, I loved that one. I also, episodes with Evian.
I knew you were going to say Evian. Yeah, I completely agree.
Jimanika.
Yeah. I know. Those are also ones
Evian
to refer
and
back
Jimanika
to forever.
Are two of my favorite guests ever.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to them, those are all about, I guess, like sexual wellness and identity and everything, I feel like. But it's not just like, ooh, like a sex chat. Like it's really going into like your body and mind and spirit and
Jimanika
all of
talking
that.
about like
trauma
and
those episodes are also like the most like practical, useful episodes we've recorded.
And
for sure.
just thinking about what a gift it's been to meet so many people through this whole process. Like meeting Evian was such a gift. Jimanika is so incredible. If you're not following Jimanika, she is like involved in so many amazing things right now. Like follow her.
Those episodes. Yeah, I agree. Those are also in my most helpful category as well. Okay, let's pick a fun one.
What was your favorite Bachelor season to cover, Bekah?
Well, Colton was our first. And so like,
Sure.
I do think that one was just, I can still think back to our bit about like him being an alien, and like that one just had us rolling on the floor. I really, okay. If I just have to say of us covering, I felt like that one, because it was our first, it was just so like fresh, and we were just going crazy with it.
Yeah, we were loose. Yeah.
And it was just silly, like really just goofy.
It was so silly.
And so I do think Colton was a fantastic season. Let us not forget the drama of that season. So I think that immediately stands out in my mind. I also really enjoyed, we obviously also had a lot of fun with Tayshia's season. I think that was also one that stands out in my mind because it was also like it was so long in between Bachelor seasons because of COVID and all
and
that.
And that was such a wild season.
Strange.
We had our
also
Claire
just
at the top, and then we loved Tayshia. Such a good Bachelorette. That was fantastic.
That was just a bizarre season too. Remember the sets and Claire's and they were at the hotel and it was just, you're like pretending COVID doesn't exist and then you're showing videos of them getting tested. I mean, that one also really stands out in my mind. But Pete.
That was mine.
It's Pete. I mean,
I think Pete's was my, like, there's so many reasons why I love so many of the different seasons that we've covered.
Pete's season was iconic.
But Pilot Pete's season was so wild to cover because it was so iconic. Also, that was peak Bachelor views. Like, they were getting explosive numbers. So there were so many people who all of a sudden were posting about stuff and had opinions about stuff. And it was just like a fucking tornado of just thoughts and ideas. And everyone's throwing different shit against the wall. And it was just fun and wild. I'm
still going to pick Colton. For me, I'm still going to pick Colton's over Pete's only because I just remember with the Maddie thing, it was like, the takes were so controversial of being like, and there was like online drama with all that. I'll pick Colton's. But yeah, those were some good seasons.
Those were so
Never
good.
forget. That is like a season I would watch again. I can't say that about very few.
Well, Evan and I, let's be honest here. Before we dive into Zach's Bachelor season, my husband is going to be doing some serious homework. He's going to be watching a bunch of the past seasons. And I told him.
Did he not watch Pete's?
He was in and out. And I'm like, we start today. We are watching Pete's season. We're going to go through a bunch.
Are you going to?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to make him sit down. I'm like, he hears me refer to
Pete
need to all
reference.
The time. I told him, I'm like, I'm going to be referencing back all the time to past seasons. You need to know.
I mean, that was the thing about me and you is that's true. Because you could also be like, oh my God, doesn't that remind you of a girl on freaking 8 years ago?
No, he's going to pull.
Nick's is also a really good one.
Next season was a great season.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's gonna be inspired by Game of Roses and watch all these seasons on like ×5 speed and just be going through.
Pick 5.
But I want to savor Pete's season. Pick
5 seasons. You could do as many Bachelorette as you want. If you had to give someone the 5 seasons to watch of the Bachelor or Bachelorette, to get like a real taste, a real good juicy taste of the Bachelor.
Okay.
I'm Caitlin's.
I was gonna say Caitlin, Nick's, Rachel Lindsay.
Yeah, that was.
I'm gonna go Pilot Pete, and then I'm gonna go Tayshia Claire. That's an iconic. That's like a season.
I feel like Tayshia Claire though was too. I feel like that one though didn't have the essence of the Bachelor.
I know, but there's something because that's historic.
Okay,
it needs to be in the 5 because it's historic. I feel like it's a world pandemic. And how does this franchise handle filming? But yeah, I'm going to go Caitlin, Nick.
Caitlin, Nick, Pete are shoo-ins.
Caitlin, Nick, Pete. Oh yeah, no, Caitlin, Nick, Rachel, Lindsay, Pete, Tayshia Claire.
Rachel's was pretty... I didn't feel like Rachel's was... There was definitely a couple wild moments. I mean, that ending was crazy with Peter and everything.
Such a good season.
That was a good season.
Such a good season.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, and I guess I can't just pick one Bachelorette. I'm definitely picking Caitlin, Nick, Pete. I do think I would pick Colton's as one of them.
For sure.
I do think he's also historic as the first gay Bachelor ever.
True.
We didn't know it at the time.
True.
But I mean, just remember with the fence jump, the promo of that season, and there was a lot of girls that came out that season. I was going to say,
there was also massive people that came out of that season. The Hannah G's, the Cassidys, the Demis, my sweet friend Elise, Kaylin,
those are big.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Tayshia. No, dude, Colton's in terms of women, I think you got to put Colton on the list. I do.
Yeah.
I do think you got to. I'm sorry, I'm Nixon, Tayshia, and Claire, and I'm throwing Colton in there.
Okay.
And because I can't just have one Bachelorette, I'll pick Rachel as the other one. watching Emily's back with Ari.
Yes.
Wait, I'm sorry, Ari's season, and not just because I was in it. Ari's season was...
Yes, there we had the Jason Mesnick before who did the Swapperoo.
That's true. I didn't watch that one.
But we had the Ari filming with Bekah, the breakup. There's so many good ones.
Okay, we'll pick like 10. But yeah, those are honestly
one of my favorite personal moments. Well, I'm trying to I have too many favorite personal moments. Jeez Louise.
I'll say, I mean, let's be real. Caitlyn through Pete's season, there are obviously good seasons. There's, like you said, Tayshia and Claire, Michelle. Like there were definitely good seasons.
I loved Katie's season.
But there definitely was a run from Caitlyn's to like, I mean, where it was just back-to-back icons. Nick,
Hannah
Rachel.
Brown.
Okay, all right. There's too many. How could we forget Hannah Brown's?
That was wild.
Holy shit.
Well, Hannah Brown really was the prequel truly into the absolute chaos that then inspired the Pilot Pete season, because that was absolute chaos into Pilot Pete's.
The windmill? I mean, what's his face? Luke P?
Oh, yes.
I hope he's happy now. I mean that with no irony. I hope he is happy and living peacefully somewhere. Oh my God. I mean, truly, who came out of Hannah's season? Pete? Is that it? The guys are never as iconic as the women.
Mike Johnson.
Okay, that's true. It is. This is all. You know what though? When I'm talking about like, oh, I'm picking mostly Bachelor seasons as my favorites. It's because like we've talked about, the women make it on the iconic seasons. Women. That is really the thing.
That is why The Bachelor is so good.
That's because
but like.
Because the Bachelorette leads are great, but when you only have like one great woman compared to like 6 on a season, it's just different.
I love watching The Bachelorette.
Yeah, totally.
Because I feel like I will likely see a love story. And so I love watching The Bachelorette.
That is true.
I like watching The Bachelor to meet the iconic women to grace our screen.
Because there are
so many.
Nick's season was Nick and Colton's, like those two came out with a lot of big ladies
stacked
from that one.
Absolutely stacked.
And Ari's, duh.
No, Ari's was huge. Congratulations to Kendall, by the way. Oh my gosh.
I know. Dude, we're out here season 22 having babies, getting engaged and married left and right. We are just a season of winning ladies.
Love and family, baby.
Okay, next one. We really got off the tangent there, but they're really, dude, we covered some fantastic. We covered Hannah Brown, right?
We
did. I forgot about that. Oh, yes, we did. Yes, we did. It's all like, I'm like, yes, we did. Yes. Whoa. Okay. All right. I'm having like acid flashbacks to Hannah's season. Okay. Do you have a most uncomfy moment?
I do. I have a most uncomfortable moment. Okay. So I have two versions of uncomfortable.
Okay.
I have like the personally, like, I'm really nervous to talk about this and I do feel uncomfortable. It was the first time I talked about my bipolar. I was really, really nervous.
That also might be one of our most helpful like episodes. I know a lot of people reference that one too, of like the first time I heard you talk about it. A lot of people talk about that one.
That one was definitely like, and when I say uncomfy, it was like that uncomfortable, like, how is this? Are people going to look at me differently? I was really nervous as a podcast host, and I'm like, are people going to look at me differently when I am honest about this and open about it? I also wanted to make sure that, I communicated things like the correct way and talked about how this was my specific experience with like meds or therapy or whatever. And I was and then after I did it, it was like the most freeing, amazing thing. And everyone was so kind and supportive. But stepping into it was a very, very uncomfy moment. And then I have the awkward, uncomfy moment. And I don't want to name names because I just don't. But there was one specific guest that we had on. And it's not anybody who's like part of the Broad Squad. It was a random off that like whatever. Not anyone anyone's going to think of that's going to come to mind. And I remember...
Am I going to know?
I think so.
Okay.
I remember, because when we're setting up beforehand Zooms, you're kind of sitting there waiting. And I remember we were having a hard time hearing the guest. And it was like, there was a lot of, and it was tons of really, really long, awkward pauses. And then there was like a lot of like audio drama. And you and I were both trying to fill in like awkward pauses. We weren't sure if it was like a delay on the Zoom or if the person was pausing.
There's actually like been no more than like 3, I would say, but there's been a few, like I couldn't remember them offhand, where it was a little bit like pulling teeth, and we did not expect that to be the case.
Right. With like professional type. Yeah. You're
sure.
Like, you don't
like
expect
experts or something.
I am truly bewildered at how many amazing guests we've had.
Well, that's the thing. How few of these experiences over the course of hundreds.
Because talking to other podcast hosts, you hear like a lot of kind of horror stories where you're like, the vibe wasn't vibing, we weren't clicking, or it was just like there was too much disagreement. I mean, whatever it was. And I was literally taking a pause and thinking, and I'm like, oh my God, specifically every person who was a Broad Squad member who came on the show was fantastic.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
I also think
that blows my mind.
Jokes aside, I really do, and we've gotten this comment from guests, I do think we're very good at making people comfortable when they come and talk. I really do.
So.
Like, I've been on some podcasts as a not a fan of the show even, where they've asked me to come on the podcast and I've showed up and I'm like, everyone's like kind of ignoring me.
Yeah,
and
you can it can be a little weird.
I've had some experience on other people's podcasts where I'm like, I do not feel welcome at all.
Like, every Broad Squad member who's come on from the get was like, oh my God, like, and it was amazing. Honestly, the very few handful of kind of like, awkward ones we've had have been like random professionals, whatever.
To be honest,
like genuinely.
We've never had podcast horror stories.
No, we really haven't.
I cannot think of
the
one.
The one that I pulled as the uncomfy moment was, to me, it was probably the most uncomfortable.
It was moderate.
And it was moderate. It was definitely doable. It was a little more just like...
It's a little weird.
I'm getting a little anxious because I feel like I'm not being a good host right now of the podcast because I don't know.
And there were some weird vibes. It was a little weird.
Yeah, it was a little awkward.
And no one's going to know, by the way. Like, if you're trying to guess, you're wrong.
You're
I already know. You're like, you're not...
It's not somebody that...
No.
Yeah.
But, I think that we've never really had like a bad experience.
No. How wild is that? I feel so grateful. Because you never know when you're having guests come in that you don't personally know all the time. Like, things could not be great.
Yeah. I mean, granted, there was some not great audio that you and Evan had to workshop over.
I'm not going to lie to you, Broads.
There was some bullshit.
The COVID times, there was some wild audio happenings where it was literally like Evan was up. Evan was editing. I remember there was one specific episode.
I know what you're talking about.
Where the sound was so bad that Evan sat, and I'm not joking, for probably 12 hours and cut out every little thing to try to make it work and then try to sync it with the video. And God bless his sweet soul. It's because the audio thing drives me crazy if it's not good. So I'm like, it can't go out if it's not, like, it just freaks me out.
Well, and also, guys, like, let's not forget, how many weeks off have there been for an episode? Because also probably like a reasonable thing to do would be like, let's delete the episode. But it was like, no, you got, your attitude was always like, we've got to deliver like to the audience. They're expecting
Trying to be consistent, baby.
We're gonna do it. And I mean, listeners, you have someone to thank for having a consistent episode once, twice, three times a week.
Thank you.
4 years.
That's why I'm excited for a couple weeks off during
I was
December.
gonna say 4 years.
I'm pretty excited.
4 years.
I'm gonna come back refreshed, honey.
And again, like
the bags
you
are
guys
gonna be
doing
gone.
one
creative.
episode a week. You're gonna get to just pop in the studio. It's gonna
for
be
right now,
transition.
We definitely might start adding on some eps, but we're starting off with one.
Take it slow. Give yourself.
We're gonna
give
wade.
yourself a break. Give
we're
yourself
gonna
a break.
into it. I know.
Let it flow. Let it flow
out of me.
Let it flow.
But all of a sudden, when the creative juices start flowing, it's like
take advantage of it.
Should we take another?
Yes.
Should we take our last quick pause? I might interrupt our phone calls and be like, okay, Becca, quick pause. I want to share with you about Caraway. But I would be, because as your friend, if you didn't know about Caraway, I'd be telling you.
Dude, I just told someone the other day, I was like, I just got this pan, and I was like, I'm not kidding you. It is like, I used to always use baking sheets, like just normal baking sheets when I'm roasting vegetables. I roast vegetables all the time. I got like a new baking pan from Caraway. I don't even have to use oil. Like I'm a good chef now, Becca. Do you understand this? I can cook now because of these brats. We have great news for you. If you've been listening recently, you've been hearing us talk about the one and only must-have in the kitchen, which is the Caraway cookware and bakeware sets. Well, Caraway, this is good news, has decided to extend their holiday sale so you can still get all of their amazing kitchen products and sets at the best prices of the year. You guys, you can save 20%. You can get 20% off everything at Caraway. Everything. But this deal is seriously not going to last long. Make sure you check it out while you still can. Why do we love them? I like their name for some reason. I like to say Caraway. It's just like, there's something like sensual about the name in my mouth. Caraway.
Yeah, it just sounds like a delicious dish, doesn't it?
Or like a spice or something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is a spice. I don't know. Okay, like I was saying, they're fully non-stick. Easy cooking, easy cleanup. Also, non-toxic. Mm-hmm. Usually you get one or the other. Not with Caraway. All of the products are made without toxic materials. You can feel good about using them when cooking for your family.
I already have the cookware and the bakeware set, as you all know, but because the sale is still going on, I'm actually thinking of getting their food storage set because, yes, we are a leftover eating household over here, and I'm always in need of some more food storage containers. Plus, the ones from Caraway are so cute. They store super conveniently, so I don't have to like tear my kitchen apart looking for lids. And of course, again, they're non-toxic like the rest of Caraway's products. Also, an amazing gift to give.
Also, they're
to some family members.
Beautiful.
They're stunning.
And the packaging they come in is beautiful. Everything about them is beautiful.
Lush.
Visit carawayhome.com. Take advantage of their cyber season event. Score up to 20% off your next purchase of non-toxic kitchenware. This deal is not going to last. Visit carawayhome.com. Shop all of their incredible products for up to 20% off this holiday season.
So, broads, getting dressed should be fun, right? But a lot of times it can feel kind of like stressful, if we're being honest. I swear I'll stand in front of my closet for like 25 minutes, sometimes just hoping something jumps out at me. Spoiler alert, it never really does. Well, thankfully, all you need is Stitch Fix, and getting dressed can be enjoyable again. Stitch Fix is basically like having your own personal styling partner, so you don't have to stress about what to wear. You get to pick from a bunch of really amazing options. Plus, you get to do the fun part, and your Stitch Fix stylist does the dirty work, honey.
To get going on your wardrobe refresh, all you do is answer a few really easy questions. You answer questions about where you typically like to shop, what kinds of styles you tend to lean towards, what your price range is, and then your Stitch Fix stylist get to work pulling from their huge selection of brands and styles in their network, and they send you a box of styles to choose from, and you get to try on everything at home. Just no inconvenience of going to the store. I hate changing in dressing rooms. I really do. No, you get to be at home. You get to look in your mirror, and then you keep what you like, send back what you don't. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free.
It's great too because, of course, you can use Stitch Fix if you want to do like a whole wardrobe overhaul or maybe just a refresh as we switch seasons. But also, if you just need an outfit for a specific event or maybe some maternity clothes, or if you're starting a new job and just need a few new outfits, Stitch Fix can help with all of it.
Right now, Stitch Fix is offering our listeners $20 off their first fix at stitchfix.com/chatty. That's stitchfix.com/chatty for $20 off today. stitchfix.com/chatty.
Okay, this one is literally impossible, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I had favorite guest. I'm like, there's just too many. When I was going over everything, I'm like, obviously, we love our Craig, we love our Roz, but I was writing down, I'm like, I got Annie Letterman, Jimanika, Evian, Rob, Pete, Mark, I met Michael Yo.
I had a blast with Annie. Obviously, like, the most recent ones come to mind. Like, I had a blast with Annie. I also, I really liked our episode with Abby that we did this year
nice,
too.
yeah.
Really enjoyed that one. Maybe was that last year already?
Maybe. No, I think that was this year. I think. Maybe not. I don't
Another
know.
really fun episode was with Harry and Abby.
Yes.
We had both of them
Harry
on.
Jowsey and Abby was so
that
fun.
was actually quite
Think about Game of Roses.
Yeah, that was fun.
Amazing. Date card pod. I love that. I mean, like, the Bachelor community too is just like,
it's robust.
it's like one of my favorite parts about doing this has been able to like get to know all of the different people in the Bachelor community. There's just so many amazing podcasts and Instagrams and hosts but yeah, there's just so many amazing, it's just endless. Ellie, like, God, there's just.
What was your mom I made it moment? You put that one down.
Oh yes, I wrote the mom I made it moment.
Was that Rob Bell?
No. The mom I made it moment was when it's kind of crazy because it was like right around Colton season.
Uh-huh.
So we were like, 10, 11 episodes in when our podcast started charting.
Yes. No, that was.
And I know it was like, so it was early on, but all of a sudden I was like, what in the world? We were on like Apple charts.
We were like number 23 of all podcasts.
For comedy. And then all podcast. Yeah, like comedy, we were high. And it was all of a sudden, because we had a brush of listeners come in. I remember seeing our podcast and I was screenshotting it next to like.
I remember that too.
Like Tiger Belly and Theo Vaughn's podcast. I remember being like, oh, what in the world? I was like having a full blown just a conniption.
That was huge.
Yeah.
That was definitely huge. We also recently, what was the awards we got nominated for?
We got like best ad read,
best, I think like all female, like I don't know, something. We
TV
got
and film podcast.
TV and film.
Yeah, that was like a year and a half
and
ago.
And we were alongside like some really big names. That was also really big.
Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
That was just an amazing pinch me moment. That's a mom I made it moment. For
Definitely.
sure.
Definitely.
And I sure let my parents know about it.
This thing's actually doing well.
All sorts of screenshots. Looky here, guys.
I mean, I remember we had a meeting with Wondery. Like, obviously that didn't pan out for our podcast network, but my dad is like a Wondery junkie. And I was like, Dad, we like had a meeting with Wondery. Like, they're like interested in us. Like, that was...
Those are those moments.
That's
They're
really
so
cool.
special. They mean so much.
Favorite celeb DM slide or follow moment?
So I was thinking about, obviously it's very different for you and me. So favorite DM slide or celeb follow. I was just thinking over the past couple years. Yours might be different because you have such a big platform. Mine are Bachelor.
Yeah.
Mine are Bachelor people. I would say my favorite follow moment was, because I'm such a big fan, was Tayshia.
Oh, yeah.
I got all sorts of like, oh my God. Tayshia
is commenting on your post.
I was like, was just nerding out. And one of my favorite DM slides was Hannah Brown during Colton season when we were going pretty hard razzing her, and she slid into our DMs and was like, this is so fun, you guys are fun. And like she was such a great sport about everything, and I remember being like, that's cool.
That might have changed during her season, but
maybe we didn't hear back from her again. But at that point, that was a fun moment where you're like, yeah, we're just having a good time.
Totally.
We're taking it seriously.
I guess my DM slides are not related to Chatty Broads because I've gotten some.
Well, share them.
Well, I got Amanda Seyfried like responded like telling me about like she messaged me like talking about like my birth videos or something. I got so nervous I didn't open it. I like didn't open it and I never responded.
You didn't respond?
I didn't even open it. I saw it and I was like,
can you respond to it right now? Like years later?
That still makes me nervous. I'm like, ugh. Or who's the comedian that follows me? He's a pretty big comedian, male comedian. What's his name?
Oh,
I can't remember.
John Mulaney, dude.
Like
fucking John Mulaney.
Yeah, John. Maybe he doesn't anymore.
I discovered it. That was, I don't know if he still does, but I remember like looking at his follows and I was like, Bekah?
Probably from The Bachelor.
Oh my God.
Also, it was really fun because I went to DM Hannah Berner because we had been talking about it, and I was like, wait, this has happened like more than once, and it's always like a great moment where I went to DM her and she had already like replied to my stories like 7 or 8 times, and I was like, oh, Like, oh, she follows me, Jess. Like, oh, she likes me. I'll send her a DM. That was cool.
Awesome. I've gotten a couple of my most favorite comedians who started following me, but that was because I met them in person. We started talking, but it was, exciting. But the conversation really was because of podcasting, where it's like, oh yeah, I do this as well. And we started talking, cool. And then they started following me and I was like, oh my God.
That's pretty cool.
That was exciting.
Okay, let's pick another one.
Oh, what about the guests that surprised you the most? Like, that came in and not that you didn't think it was going to be great, but that, maybe you had a moment where you were like, wow, that was incredible. Or
I think one that comes to mind, again, these are all obviously recent ones, like ones in the last year, always really kind of like,
of course,
because they're fresh in my mind still. I really loved John Kim and his wife, the Angry Therapist, having them on. And I was like really pleasantly surprised. Like, again, I didn't think it was going to be like trash or anything like that.
No, but you're like, wow, this was so good.
Yeah. And I just really felt like he was great on our podcast and with his wife. It was funny. Both Jess and I expected her to be like, maybe like quieter, and like we had like both had this certain image of her. And then when we had her on, like she was just so like vibrant and such enjoyable to talk to, and just had like a lot to say. And so I really enjoyed having them. That was a recent one that surprised me.
They were fantastic.
I think there was a lot that surprised me, not in the sense that I expected anything bad from them.
No, that's what I was saying. Not like where you're like, oh, it's not going to go well, but more like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
The one I wrote down was the Long Island Medium.
Oh, you know what? That's funny. As I was saying that, I was like the psychics and stuff also, just in general.
Long Island Medium for me was, obviously I was so excited to have Teresa Caputo on, like such a big fan, was very thrilled, but we had such powerful moments talking to her, and specifically your conversation with her was one that I'll never forget, that was so powerful and will stick out in my mind for forever. And I guess I was kind of expecting to have like a fun, silly time with Teresa. I didn't think it was going to be so emotional and like memorable and powerful. So that was one of my favorites. Another guest that surprised me is, I know I had my brief, really positive interaction with her.
I was just about to say the exact same person.
But Lisa Vanderpump.
I was going to literally just bring her up next. That was who I had in my mind, because it wasn't just her on our podcast. It was how welcoming and down to earth and just like the chillest, easiest to talk to person, like invited us in her kitchen, was just like, so just very, very sweet, very down to earth.
Like I said, I'd had that positive interaction with her.
Just going to bring her
IRL
up
years before, when she didn't know who I was, and she was so kind. But I could not believe, like, when you are bringing in cameras, setting up shop in someone's home, it's like you're in their home, you're kind of in their space. And she was probably one of the most welcoming people we've ever interacted with.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget having a what is life moment, like sitting on her counter and her like pulling out like giving us chocolates to eat. She's like, you need to try these.
Oh, I
know.
And
like feeding. I mean, she wasn't making us leave. She was like, hang out and stay. And it was just talk. I mean, she was just so kind and so fun to talk to that I'm like, I don't want to leave Villa Rosa.
Whenever I watch old seasons, I was just telling my friend, because we were watching an old season of Beverly Hills, and I was like, I love Lisa Vanderpump. Like she is really, I don't know. I feel like what you see is what you get. And then some.
And then some. That's the thing. After meeting her, I'm like, I've always liked LVP.
Stan.
I am a stan forever after meeting her.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah, she was really a sweetheart. I loved her too. Another guest that I didn't know much about her until we had her on was Alexis Haynes, because I was like a little young for her Alexis Nyers iconic moment. I was a little bit on the younger side for that, but having her on, and I still think a lot about what she talked about you know, of recovering from addiction and sort of this approach of like, you have to be able to face like the reality of life and like escapism. She talked, what I guess the themes that stick out in my mind is her just talking about how escapism can take on so many different forms, and you have to be ready to meet the discomfort of life, because life can be very uncomfortable. And if you can't get yourself to like face that discomfort, like you're always going to be like running in some way or another, whether that's alcohol or other things. You can't really recover. And I like that her podcast episode or name that she's taking a break from now is Recovering from Reality, because that's sort of like her theme of like, you have to be able to face like the reality of life and deal with your demons and really like get into that shit. And so I really liked that episode with her as well.
That was fantastic. And then like, on a personal note for me, so many podcast guests, whether they were listeners, part of the Broad Squad before, or had never listened before and came on, there's on both sides, so many people have like come in and been so fantastic, and like now I have like friendships with, and I'm like DMing all the time, or not DMing, texting all the time, and I'm like, now they're my friends. And that's been such a surprise to me, to be like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing how powerful podcasting can be, like really getting into it with someone for 2 hours. All of a sudden, like, you're my friend now.
Totally.
And now I feel comfortable like texting and like going out and grabbing a drink with you or a coffee. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, that definitely is.
Oh, this is kind of like a silly fun one, kind of off of the podcast. And this is weird for you because, good Lord, you are part of Bachelor Nation. But I wrote best Bachelor contestant meeting in real life moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, it's a mouthful.
How many Bachelor contestants have we met in real life? On the pod,
not a lot. Nick, Mike, Elise.
Okay.
Just a handful. Obviously, you had a relationship with Kendall, but I met her coming on the pod.
I had a blast with Blake. With Blake.
Oh my God, Blake is fantastic.
We met him on Zoom, but I had a really fun time with Blake.
And then I saw him at state. He is wonderful.
Yeah.
And I was writing down a ton. I have like pleasantly had really lovely Bachelor Nation contestant IRL meeting moments. I'm like, Mike Johnson, we could have talked to him for hours. Yeah. He's the real deal. It's like what you see on TV when you're like, oh my God, he's so dreamy and whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's Mike Johnson. Yeah. Charming and wonderful. I was saying, oh my God, on like a deep personal level, I love Katie Thurston so much. I've hung out with her. She's amazing. She's so fun. Elise from Colton's season is probably one of the kindest people I've ever met, and is wonderful. And then Tammy was one of the like shot out of a cannon at Stefan Lovegrove's Christmas party. Yeah, who when I first walked in was a little nervous. I don't really know anybody, and she just came direct to me and was just so fun and so nice. I've just had there's been so many wonderful moments.
I think you might have met more people.
I've chatted in the DMs with quite a lot of the contestants and then kind of met a few outside.
I think I haven't really met that many people since my season.
Do you have any?
Granted, it was COVID also, and babies and all of that.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have any Bachelor people who you have like a DM relationship with?
Yeah, like some funny random ones, like me and Amanda Stanton. Like we reply to each other's stories like quite frequently, and like I have definitely. We don't live that far away from each other, but we definitely have like an internet friend. We're internet friends. I'd call her like my internet friend. You know, we're like on each other's close friends list.
You guys should hang out IRL.
Nah, this is taking things too far. It does it makes me nervous. But
that's how I was with Katie a little bit, because her and I would DM all the time. And then I hung out for the first time with her like in person a while ago, but like for the first time her and I hung out one-on-one recently, and I was like, I love you. And it fully translated.
And I
Same
know-
thing with Elise. It was like in person, I was like, oh my God, like you're so, we had this DM, and then sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh my God.
Well,
you're
and
great.
people always think like that I'm going to be friends with like the person who's like the most like me, who's the most like hippie or whatever. But like, no, I don't feel like that's the case for me. Like what I like about Amanda is that she has a really great sense of humor, which maybe like, I just think she's funny, and like her close, I don't know, like and she gets like, I feel like she gets my humor. So we just like connect on that level. So she's like kind of a funny one that I have like a internet friendship that I can think
see
of.
A beautiful friendship happening. I just want to see. I just want Insta content of the two of you together. That's all. It's selfish.
Yeah, well, we're just internet friends. But that's one that comes to mind. I definitely have like a few random. I gotta look at my DMs right now because I certainly have a few random Instagram friendships with Bachelor people where we just, we'll reply to each other's stories. We're on each other's close friends list. Oh yeah, Lauren Lane is another one. Lauren,
Lauren Lane. Yes,
who was
Ben's
engaged.
ex.
Why can't I think of her maiden name?
I always
Lauren
forget.
Lane is like the perfect name.
It really is.
But it was funny. Just the other day, she was messaging me like, "We would really." She's like, "I really would like love to be friends in real life." Like, well, we don't live in the same state, but she's another one. It's funny because she's friends with Amanda. These are kind of like random. It's definitely not. I feel like what people would guess. The people that I have internet friendships, but they're like two where we'll like reply back and forth to each other and like, you know, give little tips and mom tips and like stuff like that. So yeah, there are definitely some funny random ones. I'm like, oh my God, I have so many people that I DM with. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel I'm having a hard time now, like off the top, but I'm like, yeah, I have a few random DM relationships with like a few. I
haven't talked much with Jade recently, but like I've loved going on her podcast in the past, and I loved her coming on ours.
She is so lovely.
She is such a sweetheart.
So lovely.
So yeah, there's that.
That's fun. Some behind the scenes.
It is kind of fun. It is kind of fun. And it is also funny. Like I love being on people's close friends and like. See and like sometimes, you know, if I'll like post something on close friends and then they'll respond back with their, you know, like something they wouldn't post on their feed, you know, where they're like, I totally agree, like that was such bullshit, whatever. And I'm like, oh, now I know how you feel about that, you know. And now I'm on the inside. Now I know how you
whenever
really
anyone shares
feel.
A little bit of one of those moments where you're like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
We have a little bit of a secret relationship now.
Yes. Well, I also have to thank Cassie from Colton season because Cassie gave me my two cats.
Yes.
She fostered them and I saw them on her story, and then I got to meet up with her and take them home, and now I still have Sophia and Muffins at my house. So that's kind of a sweet one.
Oh my God, Sarah Heron.
Oh yeah, I love Sarah too.
Obsessed with Sarah.
We definitely go back and forth.
Her
with
and
each other too.
she is just like, talk about someone who loves to send just like the most encouraging words.
Yeah.
Like when you're having
totally.
a rough time, Sarah is that person behind the scenes, not publicizing it, like making sure you're like good to go and like sending you encouragement.
Yeah.
She's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Now I'm going in my top requests and I'm like, oh, they're all brands, not actual people. That's disappointing. Okay, what about most personally groundbreaking moment?
Okay.
Do you have one in mind?
Yes. Okay. It's kind of off of what we talked about a little bit. So it's not like a specific moment, but it was just showing up. When I think about like how many episodes there were, I think about, and there's, you know, specific episodes that I can think of that I wouldn't even mention because I want the episode to be as it is. But there's been episodes that you and I have like behind the scenes been having, you know, like a really gnarly week or month or day, and something happened and you come in and you're like, I'm deflated, I'm sad. And I think old me, and I think boundaries are great, but I wanted to step into it.
Yeah.
I think old me would have been like, can't do it, sorry. But there were a lot of times where it's like, no, you know what? Like I want to show up and I want to sit here and be present. And so often it was always a really healing moment for me because it made me take a beat to like sit and just talk with you or a guest or whoever. And I don't think I ever walked away from recording an episode. I don't think I ever had a moment where I was going into an episode feeling like I'm really struggling right now, record it, and then left feel like regretting that I recorded.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it
totally.
always helped me, even if we didn't talk about anything that was going on in that way.
Yeah.
Just the relationship helped.
I think that some interesting things for me are like maybe groundbreaking is a little dramatic to say, but I guess some growing moments for me was receiving like reading, I won't say hard to read reviews or hard to read messages.
Sure.
But ones that actually did contain like feedback that I really needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember one was about like, and I hadn't even realized I was doing it, like about being on my phone. And I like read that and it like crushed the way that everything that the person said kind of like crushed me, but it wasn't really mean. It was just kind of like hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like kind of true. And I was like, oh, fuck. And so I think what was good for me though is that, I just quietly started like working on it. And there's been a few moments like that where I like read something and in the moment I might have been like, kind of like falling apart at the criticism. But then I worked on putting it into practice, and I like would even see sometimes people being like, oh, I really noticed that like this changed or that changed. And that was really big for me.
One of the categories is favorite Bekah moment. And I had a bunch, but one of my favorite Bekah moments was actually recapping this last season with you.
Oh,
because I knew that you had said that you were wanting to be really intentional about like going in and having fun and like, maybe giving the benefit of the doubt or whatever, like changing this energy. And I have to tell you, Bekah, like a wild like shift in like strength too, where you came in and there was just like even when there were tough days, like a lightness and energy, like, and I admired it so much that you like set out to like, because I wasn't feeling like you needed to shift that, but that was your personal goal. And just being able to see like in front of my eyes, be like, damn, she set out to do something. And I just got to see like someone make like this big, like active change. That was really inspiring to me.
Thank you. I think mindset really like changes things. I think like if you say to yourself or say to another person, like, I'm going to change this up. I don't know. I think it can be like really powerful. And I don't think I even realized how different it felt in me, because I felt different too. I was like, oh, I had fun. Even doing like Bachelor in Paradise, even though it was like, 18 episodes long?
It was so long.
It was a little tiring sometimes to watch, but I still like, I had fun. I really did not feel like I was slugging my feet through the mud. And there were past seasons where, and I'm sure listeners felt it, where I was like, I am so over this. Like I'm sorry. But I felt like just a perspective shift and being like, I do think it's important to, instead of be like, I have to do this, I get to do this. And I think I was just trying to shift to that, and it changed a lot. It changed the whole experience for me too. It wasn't like just putting on like a fake face. It was like, no, I enjoyed it more.
I could tell.
I had more fun.
Yeah.
So thank you. Another thing I've been proud of this year is I felt like I liked that with the ending of the show. And I don't know, it always feels good. What am I trying to say? It always feels good when people are like, what's the backstory? There's got to be more going on. And to be like, no, actually, like what we just said is really all there is.
I know.
And we had a number of moments like that this year. And it feels good. It felt really good for me to get that out of the way and be like, no, this is like honest.
I know. And this
is true.
I feel like something that I appreciate about our relationship with the podcast is that I can't think of a moment where we ever shared information or talked through anything that wasn't honest. Like if there was moments where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to share. I would then, I'm like, okay, one of us would literally be like, we're just not going to go there.
Yeah.
We're not going to share this, or I don't want to get into this.
Yeah.
But when we shared,
rephrase like it.
Right. But I'm like, when we shared it, if we shared it, it was the honest truth. And I'm really proud about being vulnerable in a lot of those places when it was scary to be vulnerable, because it's like, okay, maybe some people might not like the truth or are going to have different opinions about it, but we're just going to be honest about what went down in certain circumstances with us. Toughest podcast moment. What was the toughest moment for you? I don't mean like, well, I guess it can include. I was thinking like on air type moment, because there's been plenty of tough moments off air with life and stress and struggles.
I think the toughest moments, not necessarily on air, but I've had some really tough moments, and there's been times where things I've said have been like clipped, taken out of context, written on paper, and people have used that to like really, and I'm not exaggerating when I say really, like viciously attack me, and have tried to like really like remove like opportunities to try to really like attack my character based on things written down and taken out of context on the podcast, where I was actually like being incredibly vulnerable in the hopes of making people feel less alone. And I was really putting myself out there to try to share like, hey, like this is maybe hard for me to talk about, but like, you know, just like this is my experience. And to have also people respond back after actually listening to some of those episodes and going like, wow, like I understand, and like, oh, that made me feel really seen, and like I know where you're coming from in those moments, and like I know what that's like, and yada yada yada. And for those things, that's always been the hardest, is in a moment when I'm trying to really share vulnerably like parts of my experience, and to have things like twisted and turned into things to really like try to stab me with have definitely been like the toughest moments of the podcast, because I was like, wow, I didn't have to like I didn't have to share my life. Like I didn't have to. Plenty of people, you know, do podcasts where they just keep things like surface level, and that's not saying one is better than the other, but it is really hard to really like share vulnerably about things that are real in your life, and for those things to then be used against me when I was just literally trying to help people and make people feel less alone. That's definitely been the toughest moments of the podcast for me. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely like, you know.
Did you have any tough on air? I mean, I know you talked about your mental health one. The mental
health one. I would say something on air that then got really tough off air for me was one of my most favorite personal episodes, which was God, Church, and the Broads.
Yeah.
I still haven't been able to get really deep into exactly what that was, because
it might not be ever a thing.
And I don't think I probably ever will, because it's a lot of like really personal. Family, business, like all sorts of stuff. But it was devastating. Like, I mean, you saw me walk through it, and it like changed mine and Evan's life. And that was really hard to process, and that had a lot of fallout from it. So that was definitely the toughest moment for me and my family, honestly. But would go back and do it again tomorrow 100 times, because even though it was really rough, it's what I needed to propel certain things in conversations.
Because it was the truth.
It was the truth. And it was like that. It had to, I needed to have certain conversations. I needed to put certain boundaries up. I needed to change the way I was operating a lot. And so did Ev. And we were kind of in our own little huddle and protecting each other. And it was radical. There was a lot that came from that. But I'd do it again tomorrow.
Well, and to think that, I mean, I think in a lot, I mean, I don't know, maybe you would disagree. Do you feel like if you hadn't have had that episode, it might have been delaying the inevitable?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
It had to be talked about.
Yeah.
And the podcast like gave me courage to like put myself in a situation where I ended up talking about it, where I might have not for a while.
You didn't imagine that it would, though, be what it was.
Not even
following the
close.
episode, because you wouldn't have done it. You would not have done it otherwise.
Not even close
At the time.
But I think that the podcast has done that a lot for me, like where I've set myself in situations where I do share something that ends up having like some intense repercussions in my life that maybe I wouldn't have had the courage to share before. But it's also taught me about not sharing certain things. I've learned that it's okay for me to have a moment with you where all of a sudden on mic I say something and I can go back and I can take it out because I go, you know what? This is gonna just make life too hard.
Yeah.
In certain ways. And I want to share and be vulnerable, but there's also things that are like, it's safe for me to protect. And I loved the conversation with Jessica a couple weeks ago where Jessica was like, you need to have boundaries and you need to respect your boundaries. And even if people try to push, back against those for like what they want, like you gotta take care of those boundaries for sure. My big thing is time.
Yeah.
That's something that I've really learned is that, in social media and this like culture, it's all the quick response. And hearing from people like Jessica Lanyadoo, like Jessica Stone, conversations with us where I'm like really come to realize
human design is
that like I need time to process because I do also feel every emotion from every which side. I can't help it. Like I just take it all in and I need time to really sit and realize like, okay, let me read into this. Let me sit with this. Let me think on this before I respond to certain things, or if I choose to respond or not, that I need to give myself time. And I think that's been a big learning curve for me is that there was often times where I just pushed myself to just have a quick response because I was panicking. Even literally as much as like contracts where it's like,
sure.
they need to know now if we're going to accept this or not. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel yet. Yeah. I need to sit on this and really think.
I think I don't think we've ever said this, but I think people also don't realize how confusing it is when you also have people, directly messaging you, commenting, maybe even people, texting you, people saying, no, you were in the right. And people saying at the same time, like, no, you were in the wrong.
It's a lot. Yeah.
That's something I don't feel like we've ever shared about is like how confusing it can be to kind of sort out within yourself. You're like, well, this person I trust is like saying that I didn't do anything wrong. But then this person that I kind of like admire is saying that I did something wrong. And it's like, it can be very confusing and like
my
very
Libra brain
overwhelming.
Explodes with that where I'm like, oh my God, I'm hearing every side and it's all great points. And I don't know. Yeah. And just, but it's like, okay, I'm like, that's okay. I can sit with that in myself and I can process it and take time to sit with that. Don't need to rush. I need to slow down.
Because there's even times now where I can look back over the years and be like, oh yeah, 95% of people were telling me that like what I was doing was right. And now I can look back and say, I don't really think that was right. And vice versa. I can see things that I look back, 95% of people said that I did something wrong. And now I'm like, I don't think that was really wrong. And like, that's like a very real and difficult thing. People are saying, keep going, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. And then later on, you're like, oh man,
shit, I shouldn't have kept going.
That was not good advice from the majority of people. Huh.
Yeah.
Should not have listened to them.
Yeah.
Man, not easy.
Maybe, let's see. Should we do maybe like two more?
Yeah. My hand, the only thing that's going to stop me from keeping this episode going forever is my hands are shaking from hunger. So we'll do two more.
We need to feed Bekah. Do you have a favorite Broad Squad moment?
I honestly think like kind of going off of what we were just talking about, like I think what the moments that I really, really needed, obviously we've had Broad Squad guests and all of that, so I could pick one of those. But I think the moments that really mattered to me is when someone took the time especially in, the heat of some sort of cancellation or something like that. When someone took the time to like message me in the middle of like what was maybe a public difficult moment and to say, like, maybe they didn't even take a stance on what people were talking about, right? Let's say, for example, that, there was a light cancellation over something said on the podcast and a bunch of people are, bombarding DMs and comments. Someone even not even commenting on that, but just being like, I just wanted to let you know I've been listening for a really long time and I always look forward to the episodes every week. And I just, some encouraging thing, you really have shown me how to be more bold or how to, whatever, trust myself or all that kind of thing. And whenever someone took the time to write that, maybe if they weren't even commenting on everything that was going on, that always was really encouraging and like really lifted me up in some of those moments that really were not easy, even if it may have seemed to others like, well, she's just going about her life. It's like, well, even with you, it's like, I think there were plenty of moments where I was, playing things over and over and over in my head at night and not, knowing what to do, but I might have shown like a face of like, fuck it or whatever. But there was a lot of moments that were really, really hard. And for people to really just take the time to write something encouraging and sweet and with the intention to, lift us up, that really meant the world.
Messages like sharing about, especially in these last couple weeks, I've just gotten so many messages of people being like you've been part of our lives for however long, of like, when I'm unpacking my boxes in my college dorm and I'm really nervous about my first day in college, or I'm postpartum and I'm really having a hard time and I don't feel like I have any friends around, and or like, my parents were going through health issues and I was so anxious. I'm like turning on Chatty Broads help me every week. Like, I was reading through all these messages of people that it's like, oh my God, we've had babies with people, gotten engaged, gone through breakups. Like, there's so much, and that means everything. I think it truly does.
Some of my favorite messages, both on Instagram and on like related to Instagram stuff and related to the podcast, is I also love when we're sharing about something that like we're going through, and then someone in return will write a message or write a comment and be like, oh, I remember like when I went through that, and like that you're blah 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 blah, and is like relating to me like in conversation, even though I don't know them, they're then sharing like, I went through something really similar, or like I've always struggled with that same thing too. I've always really liked those moments, because then I just in those moments, even if I don't reply, because most of the time I don't, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, it's valid. There have been so many times, I know for both of us, where we've been invalidated in return. We've been vulnerable on the flip side, have been vulnerable, have shared stuff, and then having people message me, be like, I thought I was the only one who dealt with this, or I thought I was alone in that, and then it makes you feel less alone.
That's been the mass majority.
Like, wow, I'm not alone.
That's been the mass majority of this podcast to me. I think I come off pretty extroverted, but I'm an introvert, and I share certain things but protect a lot. So I think over the years there was a lot that I had never said that I felt really lonely about, like, oh, I feel this way, or I struggle with this or whatever. And all of a sudden having these conversations on the podcast and seeing communities discuss or send DMs or whatever,
yeah,
where
people
all of a
being
sudden
like, oh,
you're
I never heard someone talk about this before. This is the first time, and I really,
and I've been going through that, or that happened to me or whatever, and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is the most homey feeling I can imagine.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden it's just like, we got each other, we're not alone. Even those moments, I was sharing with a broad the other day, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but like when I would wake up in the middle of the night to like feed Ember when she was a newborn, I'd feel so lonely, like in the quiet of the night. And I remember then having one moment one night where I was sitting and I was like, there are millions of people doing this right now alone in the middle of the night. And even though we're not together, we're together. And I felt that way a lot with this podcast, where it's like, they're now knowing that there's so many moments where when I'm struggling with family stuff, religious trauma or whatever, and I feel so by myself that I'm like, maybe we're not together, but we're together. And I know right now there's someone else who's in that process. And then we can take another moment to like be silly on the podcast and take a deep breath and enjoy just like being here in life. And enjoy laughing and all of that together. Like,
I can't believe no crazy tears were shed on this podcast yet.
I know. I'm
You
like,
might
I
maybe
got
tearing up.
a little bit of the teary eyes.
Meanwhile, I can't believe I'm rushing this to wrap, but I'm getting a migraine from having low blood sugar, and I need to go have a
Baby,
lunch.
it wouldn't be Chatty Broads if we didn't get you a snack. It wouldn't be Chatty Broads if we didn't get you a snack.
If I wasn't zoning out, starting to check out from the episode because I need to go put calories in myself.
Well, I don't even know how we end. Follow Bekah if you're not.
Follow me on Instagram.
Lord knows
at Bekah.
what new project Bekah will be doing at Bekah. Tune in January 4th.
Follow the bad mom on Instagram.
Follow the bad mom with 2 Ds. Tune in January 4th for the first episode of Your Mom and Dad.
Here.
It will be on this feed, so you do not have to go anywhere. So subscribe if you're not to get updates and make sure you don't miss our first episode. Also on the YouTube, all that. It's going to be in the same spot, so you don't have to go anywhere. January 4th, Your Mom and Dad. Diving right in. Broads. Thanks for the past 4 years.
Okay, it's hitting me now.
Seriously, thank you all for the past 4 years. We've done a lot of life together, all of us. And you and I have done so much life together.
I think it'll literally just hit me. I'm like, holy shit, this is like, I mean, granted, like, I know it's not gonna be like, we'll be on each other's like podcasts in the future.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be ever the last time that we like sit down and record with each other, but like, yeah, I can't believe it, and I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it because then it's the last time I say it on this podcast. Even though I know it's not goodbye, see you later. It's all that corny stuff, but
I know. But no,
we are closing the doors on this chapter, and it's been a really long one, and it's been a really great one.
It really has, and there's just been so much that's happened and everything in 4 years, and like I just have just an immense amount of gratitude, and I love you so much.
Me too.
And I'm really proud of us. And we had a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Pain, tears, but also like so much laughter, so much goofiness, and so much just built-in joy to every week that I didn't even have to think about. Just like, oh, time to drive to Jess's, and then we're just gonna talk and be friends and do what we do. So I feel like we have to count to 3 and say it together, because neither one of us can be like the last ones to say it.
Yeah. Also, you know what I like about it is even though we're rapping, that it's not a goodbye, right? And that's what I've always loved about our send off.
No. We only live 50 minutes away from each other without traffic. We'll still see each other, probably. Okay.
Oh, all right. Ready?
I can't say it! Okay, we can't say it at the same time. You could say it the last time. Okay. Chat soon, broads.
Chat soon, broads. Thanks for chatting with us. We love you all.
Oh my goodness.